in South Africa. Okay, next we'll get the view from, I guess, the largest client of HGC, or a very large client of HGC, Mr. T.G. Limcaoco of BPI Family Savings Bank.
At BPI Family Savings Bank, we like to say that one of our missions is really to help people build their dreams by basically providing them access to finance to purchase their first homes or to purchase property for investments to rent out, thereby providing shelter for more people. Over the past 10 years, we've actually seen a revolution in home finance and housing finance as the economy strengthened, as interest rates have come down, and as more developers, national developers and pocket developers have entered the industry, competition and the macroeconomic environment has really made housing quite affordable. If you think about it today, people can actually take out a 15-year loan at a very low rate of maybe, let's say, 8.5%, 9%, fixed for maybe 5 years or 3 years, which results in an amortization which is actually quite low compared to what they would have had to pay maybe 10 years ago. So housing has actually become very affordable, admittedly for the middle class, not so much for, I think, the poorer sectors of society. But I think this only improves as competition moves on and as the infrastructure for housing improves. Let me touch on 4 items which I think Professor Veronica mentioned in a general sense, but how these 4 items actually affect the Philippine environment. One, I think we need a stronger credit information network in the Philippines. Today, one of the strengths we believe that we have at our institution is our ability to evaluate our potential borrowers, because we are a very old bank and we have tons of data on people's credit history, but that is our own history, and there's very little sharing between institutions. So we don't have a full picture of what a potential borrower's capacity to pay is or his history is. So we would err on the side of caution. So if you had a better information network, then it's easier to lend. Secondly, there are issues with the sanctity or the security of the title. I know the Land Registration Authority today is trying to improve that by computerizing all the registry of deeds, but you are moving from a process wherein all the titles were manually typed, handled by a single person, and therefore today, even if they're trying to computerize and they are making significant progress, they will themselves admit that there are a lot of red flags. There are titles that overlap because a single typo in an old title will cause it to overlap with someone else, and that's not found until they actually computerize and digitize everything. So in fact, one of the guys I was talking to in the LRA says if he was to estimate, 60% of the titles have red flags, because the typos will just basically, there'll be 2 titles that will overlap, and you cannot correct that. Even if it's an obvious typo, you can't correct it because it's got to go through some judicial process. So the security and sanctity of the title is also important. The third item is the judicial process for foreclosure. We know we want to protect our consumers, and therefore, but you have to also give sort of a fair shake to the lenders to make sure that the process for foreclosure, for redemption, also is basically both sides. You protect both the borrower and the lender. Then finally, we talked about government subsidies. We do have a guarantee, a home guarantee corporation, but sometimes I wonder, why, if a corporation wants to buy a piece of property and he would take out a loan from our institution, he would be allowed to use the interest as a tax deduction, whereas if I or my panelists around this table were to take out a personal loan for our own home, we would not be allowed to use the interest as a tax deduction. And therefore, there's a great advantage to borrowing through a corporation, which really a primary or a first-time home buyer would not have. And therefore, that's, I think, one of the things that we have to address. I'll probably think of more as we go on.
Excellent. All right, thank